You talk about baloney. I'm sorry, I'll bleep this out, but I think it's bullshit. I mean, I just bullshit what the manufacturers, the industry continues to try and do, and then it's dragging their feet and just wearing you out. Speaking of that, can you give me any kind of an update on that Doman fire? You know, the RV. It's been almost 3 years. Hang on, just a second. I'm gonna try to find some footage here to put up on the screen. But this is the story. The short story, folks, is that there was a family before Christmas 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago. Brand new RV. Like within 24 hours, the thing had burned completely to a crisp, and it was terrible. And then the Burdge law firm. You guys are the lawyer. But it's been going on forever. I mean, what is going on with that deal? I had people, I did a video with your partner there at the law firm months ago, and people are like, well, it just went away. What's happened?
It hadn't gone away, but when, and to refresh people's memory on this is the one where the RV was bought in the state of Washington. It was brand new. And they were literally driving it on their first trip. They got into Montana and it burst into flames and burned to the ground. There's videos on YouTube on it, and literally it just burned down and there was nothing left but the metal frames.
Yep.
The people, the lawsuit against the manufacturer's warning said that you had to sue in Indiana. So that's what we did. We sued the dealer who sold it, because it actually had work that should have been done, and they told him, don't worry about it. You just drive on and stop over there and all that stuff. And so they ended up with a fire that destroyed it. They filed their lawsuit, sued the factory and the dealer in Indiana. You would think that when all you've got left is nothing but rubble, ashes, that they wouldn't argue. And the first thing they did was they filed a motion because they said that, well, our warranty says you've got to give a chance to fix it, and you didn't give us a chance to fix it. Well, it took the judge a couple of months to rule on that, but the bottom line of it was there wasn't nothing left to fix. So, how can you say you want to fix it when there ain't nothing left to fix? So that motion got tossed out. And then they got more creative, and that's what caused the delay. They then filed a motion saying that, well, our warranty says you have to sue us in Indiana, but we really think you ought to sue us over in Montana where the fire occurred. And so they filed a motion asking the court to toss it over there. And then the dealer, who lives in Washington, they said, well, we think it ought to be over in Washington because that's where they bought it. And then the dealer also said, but you're right, it does say that you have to sue in Indiana against the factory. So everybody was saying different things. This is a real bowl of spaghetti because you've got all kinds of issues here, legal issues. Well, the judge quite literally yesterday issued an 18-page decision going through every nook and cranny of the arguments that were made. And basically, I won't say that the judge said it was BS. I like to characterize it as this.
Lower it so
I've had this on my desk for 20,
Lower it down a little bit.
30, 40 years.
Move it over. What does it say?
It says, illegitimus neon carborundum. I'm told that that's some kind of foreign language for BS. I've had this on my desk for about 40 years now. And whenever I get one of these arguments, I usually send a letter back saying that argument is this.
Yeah.
Let them go look it up. But the judge finally turned down every single argument they made. But it took months to get there. Now we won, sure. But now we're back to finally getting ready to start the case where it should have been before all this BS.
So let me get this straight. And I know that you didn't join the right after the fire because they didn't even know who you were, the Doman family. But all this time they haven't decided the case. They just decided now where the case is going to be because they've been arguing back and forth, like you said, a bowl of spaghetti. That is crazy.
It is crazy, but legally they're allowed to do that. Now, think about the business aspect to it. Why in the world do they think that saves them money? Can you imagine how much money they've spent on all their lawyers trying all these different tactics and delaying it all this time? You know darn good and well that they're going to lose. So why do you want to throw all this effort at it instead of just simply say, okay, we're wrong, here's a check. Or we're wrong, here's a new RV. Lots of things they could have done. Instead, they decided to dig in their heels, and they're just not going to do it until they absolutely have to.
I just think it is so sometimes these corporations, they lack that common sense. Like you said, give them a new
Yeah.
RV. I mean, think about it. They got RVs sitting there by the thousands up in
Yeah.
Indiana that aren't sold. How about going, you know what? Let's play nice. Let's get these people, get the monkey off our back. Let's get some kind of a settlement and be honest about it and just make it go away. But now they've dug themselves this hole. And I think that it's Heartland, I guess. Heartland, they look like fools for what they've done. If I was on a jury, and I don't know if I could, they would even say, but if I knew that it had been going on back and forth in these games, that would just piss me off as a person on the jury to go, this family, this young family, that all they wanted was an RV that worked. They're not trying to get rich off this thing. They just want to have some resolution. I would be.
You're absolutely right. You know, it's from a business perspective, it's stupid. It is just economically stupid to throw all that time and effort. I mean, this isn't even a $250,000 RV, for God's sakes.
Right.
You know, and what they're doing by this is that consumer sooner or later is going to sit in front of a jury and then step up in the chair and testify about what they put them through.
Oof.
From beginning to end. And then what I can just see happening is telling that jury, you know, this whole story is this.
Yeah.
What they did to these people from square one is this.
So
And
now
it didn't stop when the fire happened, when the embers failed and went out. You know what? Then they started with all this BS in the legal system.
it's what do they say? Admit nothing, deny all, and demand proof. And
Yeah.
I think that we can see that's what manufacturers, that's what human beings do. They, you know, sadly, that's what too many human beings do. So think of the stress. I don't know these people that had the, you know, fifth wheel burn up on the first day, but think of the stress, not just financial stress, but the emotional stress of all the stuff that they've gone through and watching this thing go back and forth through the legal system. What a bunch of, as I said, BS.
You know, I've been doing this for over 40 years, and I handled car cases way back in the day. And all that stretch of time, this is only the second case where there was, I take it back, third case where there was a fire that destroyed the vehicle. The first one was a car, and at a final pretrial, an earlier pretrial, the judge asked me, what was wrong with this one? And I said, it burned up. And he said, when? And I said, a couple of months after they bought it. They parked it in the garage. They literally were going into a dentist's office, went in the dentist's office, and out the window they could see smoke and flames. And all they did was park the car. The judge turned to the defense attorney for the factory, and he said, and you think this is a defect or not? It's kind of like, and the judge said, you know, when a car burns up and it's just sitting there, there's probably something wrong with it. Yeah. And I just kind of laughed to myself, and I thought, boy, you got that right. Same thing with this RV. If you're just driving down the road and a problem happens with the RV and it ain't your fault, there's only one other place to look for where the fault lays.
Yeah. I'm going to bring up something that somebody on one of our previous interviews that you and I did, and you talked about the cheaper RVs, the RVs that are less than 50 grand, for example, and the problems are, there's many more problems. Some people were offended by that, but the truth, it's just the truth. I don't think you were meaning to be hurtful or condescending.
No, I don't like the fact that RVs are bad at all. But what I have, and I can only tell you what I see. And the best example is quite literally 2 days ago, we got a call and they sent us their paperwork, and I looked at it, and they've got a terrible story of defects and everything. It went into the shop, and it was in the shop for months and months and months. And it's a $30,000 RV.
Oh my God.
And it's kind of like, you know, I wish there was an easy way to take care of these kinds of things. But the problem is, it is so very true that you get what you pay for in life. And that's not to begrudge somebody. You know, we all go through that stage where we buy what we can afford. But I think you always have to kind of take a look at, is it going to last? Because that's a real problem nowadays, much more than it used to be. When I was a kid, my dad always told me that craftsmen, you could buy their tools, and if something went wrong, you just took it back to the store and they'd give you a new one because they were built right. So if you had a problem, that's what you ought to buy. So being young, I bought cheap hammers and screwdrivers and whatever else along the way in life. And
Right.
yeah, they tended to break. And I ended up having to go buy another one because there
Yep.
was no promises there. But the difference in the RV industry now is they make promises, but you haven't got them in writing. And what you have in writing is everything they can do to make sure you don't have the right to push those promises back on them.
But Ron, they're selling the dream. Come on, that's what, they're saying, look how
Right.
much fun you can have, and well, really, and it's like, I say that they're being led, and yes, it's fun, and RVing is great, and if you can afford it, and if you're willing to do the things that it takes to be a happy camper, happy owner, great. But it's not all the image. There is a lot of stuff. There's the maintenance. It's something's always breaking down. If it ain't broken yet, well, just wait. Something else is going to break pretty quick.
Well, a lot of RVs, they're not all bad. A lot of RVs are, yeah, that's true, but a lot are not bad.
Right.
But it's one of those situations where they are selling the dream, but they're delivering a nightmare. And unfortunately, sometimes you don't get the nightmare, and that's great. But when you get the nightmare, it is a disaster. And the economic impact to the family, paying for an RV that you can't use is one thing. Losing the dreams that you were sold on is something you can't get back.
Right. Because many RVers, a lot of them that, are older, they're seniors like we are, and they don't have a whole lot of time. They don't, they want to enjoy their life. Going back to the fire that we were talking about a few minutes ago, you said that the judge has now decided the case is going to be in Indiana. Is that a good thing for the plaintiff, for the family that you're representing? Or, because it would seem to me that the judges in Indiana might, I know this is terrible to say, but they could be, friends, golf buddies with the manufacturers. And so that may not be good for you and your client. So you're saying that's a good thing to be in Indiana?
I think it is a good thing. And part of the reason for that, frankly, is what I've seen in Indiana juries. We don't often see people working in the industry who actually end up in the jury box in these cases. And when you do, what I've noticed is everybody likes to believe that they do their part of a job right. Mm-hmm. And because they actually sincerely probably try to do that most of the time.
Right.
That's the kind of people that typically get hired and keep jobs for a long time. So they don't like it when they're one spoke in the wheel and somebody else isn't doing their job. And that makes it a little easier for them to understand that, you might do your part right, but if everybody doesn't do their part right, you end up with a problem. And it is so very true that I hate to say that cheap RVs aren't built good. That isn't really the problem. The problem is they look great. The idea of them is great, the dream, if you will. It's just that you have a profit margin that gets narrower and narrower. And when it does, factories being out to make money are going to look for cheaper and cheaper ways to build what they're building. So you're just not going to get the same quality.
Yeah, and if I need a lawyer and I've got a $50,000 RV and I need a lawyer, I could spend, you guys get paid for your time, and it could take a long time, which means a lot of money for me as the owner of that RV. I'm already going through the pain, if you will, of that I can't even use the damn thing. Now I got to pay a lawyer, and you got to ask the question, when do I stop? How much do I want to write for legal bills?
You do. We typically don't handle cases in such a way that the RV owner has to keep paying us for all the work every time we're doing something on the case all the way through. Simply because if we did it that way, nobody could afford it in most cases.
Right.
And the laws that are involved in these RV cases, once you win, it gives you the right to turn around and stick your legal bill to the factory, which is where it really should be. Because when you think about it, the only reason that you as an RV owner ever had to go see an RV lawyer wasn't your fault. It was the factory's fault. So ultimately, the factory ought to be made to be responsible for that too.